So this session, my goal is not to teach you how to be more secure and how to secure yourself on the internet. This is more really to provide a context of the security scene in New Zealand as it is at the moment, who are the organisations and entities that are out there that are trying to protect you and help you and assist you, and also what are the threats and where are they coming from. And my aim in this is really to ensure that when you attend some of the other sessions tomorrow, like NetSafe have got 3 really good sessions planned, and there's another cybersecurity session following those as well, that you'll have a bit more context of who the organisations are and what the roles they play, so you can more actively hopefully participate in those discussions. So the threats to New Zealand. So this is a cartoon I like. It goes back to 2000, and it kind of basically illustrates that there's always sort of been hackers and such. And while I think maybe that was a common perception 10 years ago, a lot of people still, I think, feel that the hackers or the bad guys are maybe misguided, well-meaning individuals sort of in their parents' home sort of hacking away and doing things. But actually, the threat today has actually evolved a lot more. But if we do look back to what it was like in 2000, just for a bit of context, the systems back then were quite simple. They were really quite limited as far as being interconnected with each other. They were a lot more standalone systems. Organisations didn't have as much information flowing in and out of them as they do today. And the computer network defence was a very young industry. It was quite new. It wasn't really even probably an industry at that point. It was still more of an interest space. And the threat was mainly a nuisance. You kind of had people defacing websites, worms that were going around that would maybe cause problems with your email and things, but nothing really sort of significant. And really with a lot of the attacks back then as well, they were very overt, that you could see them happen. You could see the website be defaced. You could see the problems with your email and other things like that. However, the threats today, things have really changed a lot. Systems are a lot more complex, and there's a lot more interconnectivity as well. The security industry has matured a lot, but is still young and still really feeling its feet, and that's both in industry, also in government as well. But the threat today poses a lot more serious risk, and this is because we've got a lot more systems connected to the internet, things like our hospital systems, power, telecommunications, everything now is connected, and so therefore that means that they're potentially at risk of being compromised or being attacked and targeted. The sort of focus as well, rather than notoriety and being a nuisance and things like that, there's a lot more economic gain, so organised crime feature quite heavily, and we'll go into the threat actors soon, and really around intelligence collection and things like that for nation states. It's a great place for them to sort of get access to information on their other countries. The attacks as well nowadays, really, why there is still some overt attacks, and they're maybe more because they're politically motivated, a lot of the successful attacks and those for gaining intelligence and gaining money, which is sort of the key areas, they're covert. They don't want people to know they've compromised your systems, because the longer they can stay there, then the longer they can gain that information or collect the details that they want. So I just want to go through the sort of the groups of the threat actors and some of the motivations behind them. With the threat actors, the first sort of group that we sort of look at is the researchers. And the reason we... sorry, I'm just going to start my timer as well so I keep on track. But the reason we look at the researchers first is because they're the ones that are discovering the holes in the computer systems. They're the ones that do this out of interest. In some ways, actually, they also like to do it for profit as well. There's quite a big business in this space now. Vulnerabilities in the likes of, say, Microsoft products, key products that people are using, those vulnerabilities can reach up to 6 figures. So quite happily, over $100,000 people will pay to get access to that because of the number of systems that they could effectively compromise from that. So we're actually talking big money as far as the researchers and their motivations for doing this nowadays. But you've got the good guys there and the bad guys, people that are trying to do this to make money and to sell things. But you've also got the good guys that are trying to find things and fix them as well, and when the vulnerabilities come out, figure out ways to patch them and mitigate them and different techniques. But it does start there, and really the terms you might have heard in the past are things like black hats, hackers, but there's sort of, I suppose, a varying scale. You've got your white hats who are generally considered your good guys, your grey hats who maybe sort of sit somewhere in the middle, and then so your black hats who are your sort of typical bad guys, the hackers as you might sort of see them portrayed in TV and other things. The next sort of area of threat actors is sort of what we refer to as script kiddies. And this is generally because the people that are running these tools don't really know what they're doing or how they work as far as in behind the scene, but they've got enough know-how to basically download, run them, and do what they want to do. And nowadays, because of the researchers, they've developed some very advanced tools which make it very easy, very point and click for people to be able to try and either break into your system, scan your network, what it may be, or put things potentially on websites that will allow them maybe to compromise your computer and then start harvesting details and things. But the term's generally given to them because they're more the ones that are using, I suppose, consumers of this stuff versus producing it. And I suppose there's a misnomer that, a lot of the people these days are, again, misguided, they're bright and intelligent, we should be getting them to work for organisations, government and other things to help out. But really, these are like kids with spray cans down the street, graffiti and things like that. I shouldn't use the term kids because, they could be of any age. But people that are basically have malicious intent, they know very well what they're doing, they're not misguided, that intent is there, and they can cause a lot of harm. And a couple of public New Zealand comments, ones that occurred. A few years ago, Peter Dunn's Facebook account was hacked, and then a message was sent to all his friends containing quite a grotesque image. Obviously not something that he wanted, obviously quite offensive to people there. And the person that was behind this, they didn't actually discover who it was, but they believe the technique used was just downloading some software and running it and effectively guessed multiple attempts on his password on his account, and then they were able to get in and do this. And another sort of, I suppose, coming to maybe some social examples, was Twitter as well. A whole lot of fake accounts were set up around the time of the election in, was it 2008, I think, or around then, for some of the MPs, and people basically just pretending to be these as well. And some of the things that they did were sort of more maybe that script kiddie sort of aspect. Not really malicious, but more of a nuisance. But they kind of blur a little bit and come into the next one, which is sort of your hacktivist. And this is generally groups that are politically motivated, or groups or individuals. And they can be very coordinated, and they can be, or just sole individuals working by themselves. And their motivation is really about getting their political message across, getting attention. These attacks are going to be the ones that are really going to be the overt ones we see today, because they want people to know what they've done. They want to get people looking at whatever their topic or situation is. But one of the really big sort of public ones, and one of the well sort of coordinated ones, I think, early on, was when there was a physical conflict between Georgia and Russia back in 2008. And while the physical conflict was happening at the same time, there was also a virtual conflict. And basically groups of Russian hacktivists, they got together and they started coordinating their efforts and coordinating everyone else sort of in that region, especially in Russia, to basically cause some mayhem and disruption for the Georgian government. So one of the first things that they did was they defaced the Georgian government's Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, having pictures of the president akin to that of Hitler, and sort of putting that up. So that was one of the first things that people saw. But then what they started doing was listing a whole lot of sites that people should target and an attempt to take these down and take these offline in an effort to stop the Georgian government actually being able to communicate with its people via this means. And they were actually successful in this, and it resulted the Georgian government actually ended up having to go and use a Google service like Blogspot to set up their Ministry of Foreign Affairs page, because that was the only place that they could successfully do that and withstand the sort of onslaught of denial of service attack they were receiving. So these websites were put up. There's a screenshot of kind of one of the forums that they were using to coordinate this. It's all in Russian, so I won't translate because I can't. But they were saying, hey, look, go and download this tool. And this is similar to, again, sort of script kiddies in some ways, that they can be corralled into this. Download this tool, put the IP address in, or put the website's URL in, and basically click run. And what they ended up doing was then flooding those websites with lots and lots of requests for that website. But basically, the volume of requests was much larger than the website server could provide, and therefore people couldn't access it anymore because it just fell over or just stopped serving those up. But they also went a bit further. They said, right, if you've got some skill in hacking and you know what you're doing, here's a whole lot of websites that are vulnerable that you can go to, and actually, if you want to, you can deface them and put something else up there or steal the information there and just sort of get that messaging across. They also, I've sort of obfuscated them, but they put up a whole list of all the MPs' email addresses as well that they gained, and said just spam them, just flood them with email messages so they can't even communicate with each other via email. So that kind of was an example of one of the sort of early, I think, quite well coordinated events. But there's also a lot of individual groups and things. We had a situation in New Zealand in 2009 where one of our largest registrars was hacked, and registrars is the organisation you'll go to register a domain name. And the hackers got into there via a vulnerability that they found. And what they ended up doing was basically changing all the records inside the system. So instead of the website IP address pointing to where the website actually was, they redirected it to a website that they controlled. And so then they displayed a page like this: hey, we're the Peace Crew, we've hacked your website. And again, that's that overt attack, trying to get their message across. They were, I think, the Turkish Peace Crew, and they were also trying to protest about some of the things that were happening in Turkey and some people that have been jailed there. But the websites they targeted, you can have a look, are all the big sort of multinational companies and corporations. That was their goal and their target in that situation. They wanted to deface them to get that message out as widely as they could. About 2 or 3 months after it happened in New Zealand, exactly the same thing by the same group happened in Puerto Rico as well, the same set of websites that were defaced there. And another sort of more recent example, earlier this year in April, actually in March and April this year, there were a couple of attempts by Anonymous. I'm not going to go into detail who they are, but they're kind of now a loose collective where a lot of individuals can sort of get in behind them, and they were protesting against the likes of the 3 strikes and you're out copyright bill in New Zealand. They didn't think that was right, and they actually, a lot of political topics they will rally around behind globally, things that they don't think are right or individuals. They're a loose collective as such, there's no real kind of head person, they all sort of work together. They try to take out the government websites, both I think DIA's website and MFAT's website I think. They weren't successful in those attempts. I think the mitigation efforts put in by our government were good, and they sort of didn't get that happening. But there have been those targets here. So the next group is a group you'll be well aware of, organised crime. And really the key thing just to get across with this is organised crime are doing today exactly what they've done for many years. They're just doing it via electronic means. Things like identity theft are rife, and all they're trying to do is basically monetize these things as well. If they can steal your identity or your credit card information or details, they can then use that to monetize it and basically fill their coffers. So I'm not going to go into detail with this diagram, and these slides will be made available, and I've got a lot of URLs there so you can go and look and read up on these things in more detail. The reason I've included this slide generated by the FBI was just to show some of the level of sophistication behind this particular effort and this piece of malware. It's designed to steal your banking credentials when you log in to your account. So it'll sit there on your computer, you won't be aware that it's there. It'll then copy and register your username and password, and then later on it can then use those to basically steal money from your account. But there's a whole lot of stages here and there's a whole lot of groups involved, and they've really basically, organised crime have now sort of corporatised or professionalised this industry for them. They'll outsource someone to come up with an exploit or vulnerability finding in bits of software for them. They'll then outsource to someone else to say do a spam run or compromise websites to put their Trojans and malicious software up there. They'll then outsource other people then to effectively money mules to then collect the funds and then transfer them and put them into other funds and move them around by things such as Western Union and the like to kind of move that money so they can actually get it and not be traced. And so really there's a very coordinated, again, very organised effort behind this. Here's a little clip, it's pretty quick, and these guys just put in a skimmer, on an ATM machine. I'll just replay that again in case you missed it. Very fast that these guys do. Yeah, they were busted, which is good, but it shows you how quickly they can do this. And now this, while it's a bit more of a physical attack, it's something that they've been doing for a while, this sort of skimming money from credit cards, basically getting your credit card details. There's a lot of this is happening, but they're also combining it with the electronic stuff as well. So whether these are then sent via SMS, basically to someone's phone, with the username, the magstripe details, so basically their expiration date and credit card number, or sometimes they just collect it and they'll go back and retrieve the device later and get that information off it. But then this is what law enforcement are now finding, stashes of credit cards, where they're basically getting all the different brands of credit cards that they're able to, and then when they collect that information, they're putting this across. The thing is, the bad guys are also using effectively malicious software that's sitting on your computer as well to collect and monitor for credit card information, so when you're typing it into systems. And they'll use this and they'll sell it, and it's very easily to be monetized. And depending on the types of credit cards, there's forums that are out there where they're actively trading in this, and we're not talking about tens or hundreds, we're talking thousands and tens of thousands of credit card details. Some work, some don't, and there's obviously varying levels of remuneration they get for that, but it's big money. And again, there's all sorts of other sites and organisations when we sort of talk about outsourcing that are helping them. So there's this one website, Fuyam Printing, that was discovered, and you could go along and you could purchase a sheet of holograms. And if you zoom in a little bit closer, you see, there's that dove, and you might recognise that from things such as Visa. Again, this is just to illustrate that this is coordinated, it's very systematic, it's basically an industry for them now, and it's extremely lucrative. Some examples in New Zealand that happened sort of in the last couple of years. There was an example of Shell. They had their website compromised, and the credentials and information of their fuel card and the people behind, the owners of those cards, their details were compromised. Lush was another website where they had credit card names, numbers, addresses and things like this, which they can use for identity theft. They can use, again, for trying to steal those funds as well. So nation states is the last entity that I want to look at. So one of the big ones you would have heard about, and nation states, their goal is a couple of things. One is basically gaining intelligence. Again, one of their traditional activities they've done for many years, and the other is political influence. So these aren't new things to governments. These are just the new ways of conducting and doing things they've always done. So everyone, well not everyone, but a very well-known example of this is Stuxnet. I'm not going to go into details of this, but it's purported that this was a US and Israeli joint effort by their governments to then compromise the nuclear enrichment program via Iran, and was deemed to be very successful in disrupting that activity. And there's a lot of reporting on this and speculation around who was behind it and why. You can just Google for Stuxnet and you'll find some stories there. But then another one is sort of cyber attacks. So nowadays when there may be physical conflicts and things going on, there's also they're coordinating the cyber efforts as well, just to disrupt communications and just to, again, exert some influence. Another example was the US came out and said that the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, was compromised, and all the plans for the Joint Strike Fighter were stolen. Now, I don't see too many organised criminals running around in sort of the new jets. So this again is maybe someone like an organised criminal doing it, or it may be individual hackers or groups doing this work. But obviously, the people that are going to pay for this and buy this information are generally going to be nation states that are looking to understand better the technology, so then they can mitigate against that. But another good example about sort of more political influence was what's deemed GhostNet. So you can, again, have a look and search for this. But effectively, a group of researchers at Toronto University, basically, long story short, they uncovered that the Dalai Lama's laptop had been compromised, and a lot of the people around him as well. And in fact, there was a lot of organisations and a lot of companies have been compromised by the same piece of malware. And they believed that it was of Chinese origin. And effectively, they were wanting to basically understand all the emails and everything that was going on, all the discussions and communication, again, in an effort to basically influence the political landscape that was happening or better understand what was going on. And so there was quite a lot of work that they did to monitor this network they called GhostNet, where it was communicating, who it was communicating to. They found a number of embassies had been compromised around the world by this. And again, that's going to be a nation state that's going to sort of have that interest in that level. So just to recap, today the threats out, the systems that we have are really complex now. There's a lot of information sharing happening upon them. And it really makes it a lot easier for the bad guys, because rather than having to physically get access to you and your wallet, they can just do that now virtually. And it's really, I just want to make sure you realise that these aren't things that are seen in the movie. This stuff's happening every day. It's very lucrative. And you can see why, because for them it's very low risk as well. They can be very remote from the victim. And it's a lot harder to trace down and track down actually who's behind these, because they can route their communications and things across multiple computers, making it very hard to trace back. So mitigating the threats, it's not all doom and gloom. There's actually a lot of good work happening to kind of basically try and combat this in New Zealand. And so what I want to have a look at is initially is the government, then what are some of the things happening in industry, and then also what sort of the security community in New Zealand doing as well around this. So in government, June last year, our government announced their National Cybersecurity Strategy. Alan Bell, did I see him here before? No, sorry, I thought he was in the room. Did a lot of work, MED did a lot of work in developing this and pulling it together. And they've also got quite a concerted effort now. A quote from them, just received a couple of days ago, is they're really looking to strengthen the coordination of policy across government and the work that's happening there. And there's a link to go and read the strategy there as well if you're interested in that. But really what it looks to do is identify sort of 3 key areas. I'm not going to go into the details of the strategy in a lot of depth just because this is a high-level overview system. But they are really looking to about increasing their online awareness and safety. And they're doing that partnering with organisations like NetSafe and others. The next goal that they've really got is around protecting government informations and systems. So this is enhancing the efforts they already have within government, establishing the National Cybersecurity Centre, which I'll get to in a second, and looking to basically improve protection across government as well. And then they also, the third sort of key initiative in that area, key focus area, is around the incident response and planning, ensuring that basically government is better prepared to handle and respond to and mitigate a cyber incident. Because at the end of the day, these things are going to happen. It's just inevitable at some point in time. And they've happened overseas. There'll probably be something here. Effectively, the cost is really in the amount of time it takes to respond to and effectively undo the bad works of some kind of an attack, whether it's as an organisation or as a government entity. So the more coordinated they can be, the quicker they can actually respond to this and get things back to business as usual, hopefully. So part of this is what they established was the National Cybersecurity Centre. So that was set up in September 2011, it has assumed the responsibilities that a critical infrastructure entity had prior to that, and it looks at the information assurance across government as well. So that's the advice and guidance to government. And the National Cybersecurity Centre, or the NCSC, they're a part of the GCSB, our Government Communications Security Bureau. And there's a bit of information around the NCSC that they provided, but really it's around providing that advice and guidance to government and to critical infrastructure owners and operators in industry. The next sort of entity that we have is the New Zealand Police. Some of these slides have been kindly provided by the organisations just to ensure that their key messages were coming over. So the police have actually been working in this space for a long time. The e-crime lab when was the e-crime lab first set up? Back in 97 or something like that? Yeah, so quite a while ago. We've got the guys over here from there. So they've had the e-crime lab, which has really worked to provide evidence to standard law enforcement. Basically, they've gone in and they're conducting their normal business. As part of an investigation, there's been either a phone or it's been a hard drive or something else, and they've provided that information to them. So this team basically can extract all that information off those systems. They have a signal processing lab as well, which they can potentially things like video signals or audio recordings, they can clean those up and enhance them. Kind of like you see in the movies, they actually can do a lot of that stuff. It's quite cool. And they also have the National Cyber Security Centre, Crime Centre, as well. And I won't go into all the details, but the information's here, so you can refer back to this later. But with the Cyber Crime Centre, this is more of a focus now looking at actually about cyber-based crimes. So rather than traditional crimes that maybe have some electronic or digital component to them, these are more crimes that are committed online, and they look at investigating those and also in educating police staff and providing support there. Good guys, we've got Ricks and Cliff over there, so yeah, go and talk to them if you've got any issues. Another area that the police also run is Oceans. Effectively, this is looking to catch online predators and pedophiles and things like that. They do a lot of work in that space, sadly. They need to. They do some very good work, and we're quite lucky to have them as well doing that. So the next government department I wanted to talk about was the Department of Internal Affairs Anti-Spam Unit. Effectively, their job is enforcing the Anti-Spam Act. We've got Tony Demetrio sitting up the front here, I see. Tony's the manager of the anti-spam unit. They do a great job. In fact, they had a really successful case a few years ago. There was a group called Herbal King. They were basically a big spamming outfit. In 2007 and 2008, they were kind of referred to as being the largest spamming group. They were actually based out of New Zealand, the individuals that were behind that. The anti-spam unit led quite a lengthy and successful investigation into them. And they were fined $250,000 in New Zealand. And then the United States Federal Trade Commission also fined them $15.5 million. But how much would they have generated from that? Like what's publicly available? Was it around 40 million or something like that? Yep. So there was about 27 to 28 million between 2004 and 2007. So actually when you look at these fines, they're actually kind of low. It's still a pretty good return on investment for them, especially if you take the US one into account. But there was great work done by those guys, and we're very fortunate to have them as well. Scamwatch, I think we saw Jared in the audience somewhere here, maybe? See? Yep, Jared's back there. So Ministry of Consumer Affairs, they run Scamwatch, so that's a website that you can go to. I think it's scamwatch.govt.nz. And that's basically got information up there about the different scams that are reported to them, the different scams that they're aware of, and what you can do to sort of effectively not get caught by those. It's also a place to report scams as well and receive alerts about scams that are out there, online scams. So that's a great resource. If you haven't been there, definitely worth checking out. The next one I want to come to is NetSafe, and see Lee up front as well. So NetSafe aren't government, but I've included them here because they did feature quite heavily in the National Cybersecurity Strategy. They are an incorporated society, non-profit. You guys are charity as well, Lee? Yep, they're a charity too. If you're not aware of NetSafe, definitely go and check out the resources. They've got a great website with a lot available. If you're a parent, there's a lot there to help you with your kids as well and educating them. Just as an individual, there's a lot that's there too. So they've been working quite closely with government, and one of the initiatives that they've got set up is called the ORB, Online Reporting Button. Basically, it's a place where you can report online crime online. And so that's a place to go to if you're not sure where to report something. If something's happened, be it cyberbullying or maybe some spamming issues or problems or texting things, you can go there, and then what they're going to make sure is that those reports get through to the right agency. So whether it needs to get through to the anti-spam unit or whether it needs to go through to the police, they can help direct you and assist you there. So that's a great resource for New Zealand. And NetSafe worked with the government, and they launched our Cybersecurity Awareness Week earlier this year, in fact, last month. So that was quite a successful week. And as part of that, they also launched a website called securitycentral.org.nz. It's another great resource that's definitely worth checking out. And they've got some good tips there to sort of how you can protect yourself online and ensure that you're well protected and safe there. And I think, yeah, the key messages they have there are those top ones. You want to update everything, so that's your operating system, your antivirus, all your software on your computer or your phone. Back up your files regularly, because of everything. If your hard drive dies, that's something you can't easily protect against. It's good to have those backups, but also if you get infected with something. Securing your wireless network's a big one, mainly so people can't abuse it, and neighbours, and do things maybe that are online that aren't wanted, that could potentially get you in trouble. And also using strong passwords as well. You don't want to reuse the same password on multiple websites, because if that website gets compromised, they could potentially retry your credentials. So if you use the same credentials on TradeMe that you do on other forums, then you want to make sure, I think, that they're going to be different across the board. One cool initiative they launched was the Girl Guide and Cub Scout Cyber Safety Badge. I used to be a scout, so I think that's kind of a cool thing to have, to see that movement progressing. Again, that's probably something to watch out for if you've got kids as well. But interestingly, from the orb, some of the stats that they report, I hope that's readable for everyone, but some of the losses that they recorded during the 2011 year, the biggest loss that someone reported to them via the orb was $140,000 for one organisation. And I think the biggest scam in that year was it $260,000? I think so. These are some big figures that people are falling for, and it generally, I think, the biggest category of those is romance scams. That's where someone will meet somebody online, they'll build that relationship, that trust, that friendship, and say, hey, look, I want to come out and meet you, I want to visit, but I'm stuck, I can't, and my father's ill, he's in hospital, can you send me some money to help? And people they think they know this person, they're in love with them, they've built this bond, and so they believe them and they start sending money away, and it's pretty sad really, because they're pulling on heartstrings, but also they're taking a lot of money away from them too. But you can see the total number of scams that was reported there was about 770,000. So that's quite a significant figure. I think there's a report that came out last year from Symantec reporting the total number of losses for New Zealand was estimated at about 650 million across the board. That's both in the corporate and individual space. So again, this isn't stuff that just happens in the movies. This isn't stuff that happens to you because you're a government department. They'll go after anybody. Like, the bad guys are very opportunistic. And they'll just grab anybody. They don't care who you are, but if they can get your information or get your passwords or get your details and sell those onto someone, they will. So the next space I want to go to is the industry, and we're kind of getting close to the end here. We've got a really active security industry in New Zealand. There's a number of dedicated companies that really focus around penetration, testing services and security services. Through the Internet Task Force, which is a group that I chair, we'll come to in a bit, there's an effort we're setting up a certification. So if you don't know a lot about the security industry or you're not plugged into it, hopefully you can go to this certification and look for someone on that list, and you know objectively that they're an authoritative entity that you can go to get the right advice and guidance. So that's something we're trying to do to help promote that industry. There's ISACA in New Zealand. They have a number of chapters around New Zealand, Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, or ISACA. They've got a conference coming up a bit later in the year, and they're really focused around people in the auditing space, and sort of, I suppose they're a professional body there and professional certification group. There's our First Tuesday Club. They always meet on the first Tuesday of each month in Auckland, and every second month in Auckland, and every month in Wellington. And they're a good chance to go along to network with others that are in the industry. Usually a sponsor will put on some beers or some drinks and some refreshments and food, should I say. And it's a chance to they'll maybe give a 20-minute talk on something sort of topical. But this is just to give you an idea. There's actually a lot happening in the industry that's out there, in addition to the work in government. And community. So if we think of the industry as basically the people that say work 9 till 5, the community, I kind of like to think of the people that work from 5 in the evening to sort of 9 in the morning. They do this because they're passionate about it, because they care, it's because it's something that they sort of believe in. And we're actually really lucky in New Zealand that we've got a very active security community, because they're the ones that are really the next generation, the people that are coming through in the security industry that we have. So one of the groups is ISIG. It's a technical group, and they meet on the last Thursday of each month in Auckland and Wellington. Great to go along to, great way just to get more information about what's happening, what's out there. And they've also got a website and IRC channel if you want to hang out there. Kiwi Corners is something that grew out of ISIG. There have been 5 Kiwi Cons now. They'll hold the 6th one this year. Kiwi Corners, New Zealand's hacker conference. They're all pretty friendly guys though. Most of them are pretty passionate about New Zealand and the security of New Zealand, but it's a forum where they can share information, they can hopefully get people interested into the security industry, and actually ensure that they end up going down the right path, that they don't end up being misguided and doing things and hacking into something by accident, getting caught and then not being able to get into the industry. They want to show people, hey, it's good to be in security, and there's the right way of doing research and things like that as well. It was a big conference though. This year was 650 people, or last year was 650. Kind of estimating maybe around 850 people attending this year. So it's a pretty sizable conference in the weekend, people giving up their time. It's about $50 to attend. There's a lot of good national speakers there, but also some international speakers too. Definitely worth thinking about. If you want to understand a little bit more about security or the space, definitely worth going along to. Intersecurity is a really cool initiative that's just sort of been set up this year. Basically, a lot of people behind some of those other groups have got together, and what they're doing is really trying to ensure that the university students that are going through have a really nice roadmap to get into information security. That's because there's a big skill set shortage in New Zealand, and sometimes it's often a hard place to, people perceive it as a hard area to get into security. So they're trying to work with people to basically get them into that space and show them it's easy. They do that through mentoring, work experience and other things. And I think they've got about 17 or 20 pairs of mentees and mentors from the industry that are working with these students and helping them sort of get into the industry and assisting with the research topics and ideas and things like that. So it's a really good initiative. And they're running a bunch of awareness days as well around the country. So they're on the weekend. So they're coming to a city near you soon. So it might be worth checking those out and maybe going along to, again, better understand what's happening in that space or share with others. OWASP is another good group that's set up in New Zealand. They really focus around trying to teach web developers and people who build your websites and systems about the security issues and flaws and pitfalls. And it's a lot of security people behind that working with that sort of that industry there. They've also got a conference coming up again. It's a free conference to attend in August, and there's more information available from the organisers there. I'll save the best for last. NZITF, this is a group I have the privilege of chairing at the moment. But Mike's soon to be at the chair, coming next month in the back there. And actually there's a few people in the room here that are involved and board members as well. But our goal is really we want to improve the cybersecurity posture of NZ. We're really fortunate in New Zealand that you can get all the key people in the same place. Sometimes colloquially we refer to it as all in the same pub. But we're able to get a lot of the key people together. And the goal behind this is better understanding the threat that's out there. And these are generally with security people. And it's how we can work more collectively and collaboratively, both across government and industry. We involve academia, the ISPs, the security researchers. We're trying to really get the who's who of the security industry in New Zealand together to share, to better understand the threat, to upskill information, to build trusted relationships. So when things do happen or crises happen, we can actually work more collaboratively together. And I think we're doing that, and we put on a lot of really cost-effective training for organisations as well to ensure the skills get into the hands of the actual people doing the work. And we're able to bring in some good international trainers through our friendships and relationships overseas. If you want more about that, either talk to myself or Mike or Tony. And I think that's about all. Oh, yeah, just some of the members that we have involved. But really, the last thought that I wanted to leave you with was really that, to really effectively mitigate these threats, it's a collaborative effort. It's not just one organisation doing it by itself. It's not just government. It's not just industry. It's not just sort of the community. Everyone has to work together in this space. But I think in New Zealand, we're actually starting to do that really effectively, and there's a lot of work happening there, and it's not all doom and gloom. So yeah, thanks for your time. Might have a few minutes left for questions, if anyone's got any. Or any comments or thoughts? No, the speaker was unwell, so we ended up swapping. Sorry. Lee. Sure, we'll just grab the microphone. Sorry, Lee. Is everyone online can hear as well?
Just wondering where we're at with mandatory reporting of those sorts of hacks. Like, I'm trying to think, did I ever give my website to Lush? I bought things from Lush. Ooh.
Yeah, at the moment in New Zealand there's no mandatory reporting at all. Some countries like the US there is, for example. A lot of the states in the US now there is. The Law Commission reviewed our Privacy Act last year, and in that they made some recommendations for mandatory reporting. That will probably be for government, so that's currently being considered now. But yeah, we're not there, but it's something that we strongly support as the NZITF, and I know a lot of other groups do as well. Because you want to know that if your credentials have been compromised. You want to know if you do use the same passwords for, say, certain sites or certain accounts, You want to know that there's an issue with that maybe it's out there, the bad guys have got that, so you can go and change it, and basically you can manage your own security at that point in time. So we see that as quite an important thing, and hope that comes through. Any other comments from the room at all? I see Mod up the back there, and I know TradeMe, they are very proactive in their trust and safety, the work that they do. They've got a big team there that are working very actively in this space, and I think it's great, again, with such a popular website in New Zealand, that you guys go to the level of effort that you do to ensure that we're protected online and that people aren't using your systems to scam. So, yeah, thanks for that.
You gave the example of all the attacks that happened in Georgia and how basically the whole government went down. Did they get on top of that in the end, and are there measures in place now to stop that from happening?
Yes, they did. So that was back in 2008, and I think it was for about a month or two that they were having to use the Google as their sort of authoritative source of information, the blog spot there. Basically, it was just a blog. But yeah, that's been remedied and fixed now. But it does show you how quickly someone, how much impact like a group can have if they sort of coordinate against that. Questions? Oh, yes, hi.
Yeah, just for the lady that was wondering about mandatory reporting. It doesn't exist in New Zealand, but there are other countries, obviously, around the world that do have it. And because of that and because of the security community, there's some sites around that will help you out if, say, your social media site's been hacked and your password's been posted up. So things like shouldichangemypassword.com grabs all of those databases that get thrown up onto Pastebin and places like that, and then you can type your email address in there and it'll say, hey, we've found this 1, 2, 3, 4 times, whatever, or hey, you're fine. And from that you can take Paul's recommendations and change your passwords and use decent, strong ones.
That's a great resource. Thank you for that.
Great preso. Question. Over time, do you see the ability to get domestic prosecutions on domestic offenders improving, or do you think it's still as hard as ever?
It's probably a good one for the guys at the National Cyber Crime Centre to answer. I think things will get better, but I think still a long way to go, yes. I think resourcing is a key one. Like these guys, I think, are quite under-resourced for the amount of cases that they're facing, and I think that's a key issue that hinders that.
Do you think the amended Section 249 of the Crimes Act has improved that overall?
I'm not familiar enough to probably go into that. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to talk where I can't. Cool.
I read an article a while back about massive amounts of resources in China going into cyber attacks on other countries. So, do you think that's going to be a problem?
I think it already is a problem. I think it has been for a number of years. It's maybe just getting more publicity now than previously. And they've got a lot of resources, and when you think of it, it's actually a very cost-effective way, whether it's gaining intelligence or just corporate espionage. It's quite cost-effective for these organisations.
So what sort of countermeasures are other countries able to do?
There's probably a lot that's classified in that space. But a lot of the governments, if you look at them, a lot of the economies around the world are really ramping up their efforts in a time like a recession where there's been a lot of budget cuts in areas. You see cybersecurity is one of the few areas that's actually getting additional spending. Our government obviously launching the National Cybersecurity Strategy and enhancing the sort of staffing levels at the National Cybersecurity Centre, I think is a good example of how our government's sort of responding to that. If you look in the UK as well, they're putting a lot of money into this and to sort of really ramp up their ability to be able to detect and remediate this stuff.
Do you think it's enough to actually sort of take on China, though, with the amount of resources they're putting in there?
I don't think it's about taking them on. I think it's about ensuring that we may be more of a harder target, maybe not as lucrative as, say, Australia or somewhere like that. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, maybe, yeah. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Yeah, there's the NetSafe Cybersecurity Initiative. They're meeting tonight at 6:30, I think, in rooms 1 and 2. That's 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So if there's something you're interested in or are hearing more about, they're going to give you an overview of the work they've been doing and partnering with government in the space as far as the education and awareness goes within New Zealand.
I note that your fraud for romance scams around about $400,000. What initiatives and resources are being put in to educate that space?
Lee, do you want to talk to that one? Lee's from NetSafe, if you haven't met Lee.
Well, we really wish we had the resources to do as much education as we could about that, because often when there's like a media coverage of something like that, we get a big hit on the orb on those sorts of things. And those figures was from a very small number of reports, like I think 31 reports, and yet the amount that was lost was 700,000. Yeah, so it's, or whatever it was, I can't remember. It's definitely a huge issue, but often people who have, it's complex because it involves people's emotions, and even when they've been told that this person is definitely a scammer, there is no doubt about that. We've had cases where they've just kept going back and giving more money. Just a bit more, yeah. So it's tricky.
But the education space is a really hard one. I think Mod's got a question. Education space is really a hard one, just because unless someone's actually had something happen to them, they're really not going to go out and proactively try and fix things. It's only when there's a problem that exists that people are going to take that. And I think that when all of our fridges and TVs are all online, and then there's like the Rugby World Cup final and someone turns off your fridge and your beer goes warm and your TV goes off, I think it's then that people actually start being a little bit more proactive and fixing things. But it doesn't hurt people, so there's not a large incentive, which makes education harder. Mod.
Just giving you an example of that, to Lee's point, I'm with Trade Me. We also run Find Someone. We had a call from a lady in Rangiora about 3 weeks ago. Her mother had met somebody on Facebook, nothing to do with Find Someone, but was concerned that he was asking her for money to be sent via Western Union. And we got on the phone to her, spoke to her for about an hour, convinced her that it really was a scammer, not to send money. She was going to anyway, so we got the police to go and visit her and explain to her that it was a scammer. And she said, yep, no, got it. Next day, guess what? You know, it's just incredible that it's like a drug.
Yeah, generally when the police turn up and talk to you, you kind of take things pretty seriously, but yeah.
Can I just say, we actually work in the space of, we're private investigators, and we actually work in the space with online dating scams specifically. And last year alone, we intervened in just under $500,000 that was going to be sent offshore. So we come across this on a very regular basis, and that's my major concern, is that even though we see it as a fraud that's growing exponentially, you can see by your stats and the stats that we have as well, we can see that quite clearly. And yet what concerns me is the lack of resources. I know there's contributing factors to this, but even if it's just getting out there and talking to groups about online dating scams. And
yeah, I think the work that NetSafe are doing and government partnering there is to grow that, but you're right, there's still certainly a lot of room there. And I think the problem as well is things like romance scams, a lot of people are too embarrassed to tell anybody, so they're not actually going to call up and say, hey, this happened to me, I got duped, because people are embarrassed about that. So there's probably a lot more that's actually occurring.
If you've ever looked at some of the Nigerian scams, you might look at them and how badly worded they are and the mistakes in it, and they're like outright sale from Nigeria, and you go, how on earth can you fall for this? Well, just the New Zealand Herald, like yesterday or the day before, was actually an article saying that this was actually intentional. It's kind of like a selection measure to, select people who are foolish enough to fall for it, which I thought was quite interesting, because they have a problem in that they're sending out to so many people, they kind of want a pre-selecting screen so they can find their victims faster. And so if you ever look at it and go, oh my God, this is stupid, well, that's good. They're not targeting you, it shows.
I hadn't heard that, but what I have heard in the past from law enforcement and other forms is that the organised criminals will employ psychologists to help with writing and crafting of these emails and the approaches that they're taking. Also employing English experts and things like that as well to help to ensure the translations are good for some of the scams and some of the work that they do, especially when they're more targeting organisations for corporate espionage and that. Yes.
I was just thinking maybe education has to come to people really directly. Like I was just thinking about the drink driving and the speed driving ads on TV, really hard hitting. Like, what if you had something like that for the romance scams on TV?
And ScamWatch, you do have some of that material on your website, don't you, Jared? Have you got any comments? We've got Jared at the back who works for ScamWatch there. Do you have a mic?
To answer the previous question, yes, there is a lack of resources. and national advertising on a particular scam would probably cost about $1 million a year. So our main way of getting information across to people at the moment is through the ScamWatch website. But yeah, people have to go to it to get the information, but it is expensive to talk to people.
I think that's why I like ideas like working with the Scouts and the Girl and the Cubs and Girl Guides and that, because they will hopefully get cyber savvy now, so as they grow older, they can, one, educate their family and others around them, but two, not be so easily duped. But we had some questions over this side.
Oh, no, it was just a quick comment. Has there been a Shortland Street episode on romance scams? Just maybe that would be...
I don't know, but maybe it's not actually a bad suggestion. There has? Okay, I think Mod's shaking his head saying there has. Any other questions at all? Any other comments? Still got about 10 minutes for the session, but you don't have to go through if there's...
I just thought I'd mention what I mentioned. I don't think yet. You've bet like why psychologists and stuff get used, because the weakest link in any system is pretty much always people. So that's something which would be really mindful. You know, who's the employees who are using this, or what am I perhaps liable to? You know, people are the weakest link in security. It's not like anything technology.
There was a popular T-shirt going around some of sort of the international hacker security type conferences a few years ago that the technical guys liked, and it said there's no patch for human stupidity. But yeah, directly to your point. Yes.
Yes, I just want to point out that this is not just an issue of the internet. You know, every day people are scammed with telephone calls.
Yes.
So, you know, this is not just an internet issue. Yeah? And the telephone has been around for ages, and people have been scammed by people calling them at their homes for ages.
Indeed. Yep. They're just now using the internet to get more people or run those calls via the internet, so it's a lot cheaper for them. Any other thoughts or comments before we close the session? Lee? We just... Mike, sorry. Thank you.
Just there's a workshop on scams tomorrow in this very room, so come with your suggestions.
Yeah, I think there's 3 sessions at NetSafe are running tomorrow, so if you've enjoyed this topic today or this piqued your interest, then definitely attend those. And another cybersecurity one after that as well. Oh, yes.
Yeah, this is food for thought. You know, I have a computer programming background. So, you know, when everybody buys a computer, when you boot your computer up and you go to your interface, don't you think, you know, that especially with Mac OS and PC, they have designed a little, maybe even a 10-second program to say when you boot your computer up, this comes up on your computer to make you aware, like a safety thing. When you go to take your children to a swimming pool place, they have these warnings. It'd be really good if, you know, these organisations got together and built just a 10-second interface, so when you boot your computer up, so it becomes in people's faces, so people get used to it. Like an ad.
I think we need to think about other creative ways of getting the messaging, and I like the Shortland Street idea. With that, I think some people might get frustrated, but also now they're trying to make it so your computer never has to be turned off or rebooted, that it's just always on. But yeah, it's good to think outside the box, definitely. Any other questions before we close the event? Cool. Well, thank you all for your time and for your participation.